cool. So we're just going to do a short round of questions. I'm sure you guys have been jotting down loads of questions throughout the day. So if you have them, now's the time. Raise your hands. At the back there. Wait, I'll come to you. Just say who your question's for and...
It's kind of a generic question about ads themselves, about shirt placement, backgrounds, content, copy, what works. I'm kind of new to this, so any advice would be great, please, to everyone.
Yeah. So the question was, what are best practices when it comes to making the ad image itself? So what we found is what works really, really well is having something that has a high contrast against the Facebook background. So Facebook background is usually just white. So what we do is we usually have a very dark background, like a colorful background, and then we have a shirt. We make sure the shirt is very visible. It's zoomed in, so you can still see that it's a shirt, but you can actually read the message. And we put either a shadow or a glow around the shirt so that it stands out against the background. So the best practices I would say is number one, make sure the shirt design is very clearly readable, even if that means zooming in. Number two, it's having the background image pop against Facebook, so any color except for white. And number three is have a very strong call to action in the ad copy itself. And the best calls to action are in capital letters saying, do you like, and then enter the niche here. And then underneath it, then this shirt is for you, get it here. And you can do that.
And building off of that, something that is big and important that we've kind of talked about is keep it consistent, keep it the same. Don't try to reinvent the wheel shirt to shirt, niche to niche. Don't beat yourself up over it. You know, you've said it before, you use the same ad copy over and over and just slightly alter it.
Exactly.
Sorry, can I just, when you showed the picture of the nurses' t-shirts and you said you kind of put that out for people to vote on, two top ones that were voted were people wearing the shirts, in that case women wearing the shirts, whereas the other two that were lower were just the shirts on a flat background. Do you think that makes a difference, actually having it modelled?
Yeah, the question was, does it make a difference to have a person wearing the model versus having just the shirt image? I actually don't know that. What we've done some very light experimentation with having somebody wear the shirt versus just showing the shirt itself. And what we found is it's just much easier to make the mock-up without the model, just making the shirt mock-up itself. And the reason for that is we found ourselves creating lots of different mock-ups for hoodies, for tank tops, for different kinds of shirts, men's shirts, women's shirts, and we could not find a very consistent model image across that.
I did a lot of testing on that.
Okay.
Would you like to?
When it comes to models, we did quite a bit of testing on this. You've got to be very, very careful because certain people sell and certain ones don't. You get a model with blonde hair, nice eyes, it sells. You get a model with dirty blonde, it doesn't. It's weird. You're better off keeping away from them most of the time. And don't have eyes on your ad because eyes draw your eyes, and we want people looking at the shirt, not the bird's face.
Thank you. And that's Glenn Williams. For those who don't know, Glenn Williams has been selling on Teespring for a long time. He's had a lot of success. So,
Right.
absolutely.
Arjun, assuming that you want to build a niche around people who are nurses, to whom would you delegate the work of actually coming up with, on a consistent basis, coming up with ideas, quotes, text lines that go on the shirt? To a creative designer, or to a journalist, to a writer, to a person who's actually a nurse?
Okay, so and I'm curious to know everyone else's
Yeah.
process for this. I think everybody does it differently. What we've done, as I mentioned, we were very, very fortunate to find a great designer who also is great at copywriting. And so what he basically does is he will read many of the comments on our Facebook pages. He'll constantly be browsing either, if nursing is our example, other nurse pages, or doing Google searches and finding shirts on other websites. Yeah, it was very important to us to have our designers feel like they're coming up with the designs and that they're getting straight feedback from the audience. And that's why even those grid tests that we ran, initially, you know, we, not the designers, were running the test, but we found far more success when we had the designers proactively go and run these tests. We found that they actually felt a lot more connected to what works and to the audience, and they can develop the intuition for themselves as opposed to us, the targeting people, learning it and transmitting the information back to the designer.
Cool. What was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else have another question, or Martin? Let me get Martin quickly, and then we'll move down that way.
Can we come back to the Facebook ads? Do you run any words in the image area, or do you only ever run images? And do you only ever run T-shirts, or do you run a niche-related image as well as the product you're selling?
Yeah, I don't know. You guys found?
Yeah.
We constantly, you vary it up. We found that, especially with retargeting, putting images in there just to break up the monotony of what we're doing. So it comes back to that pattern interrupt that Matt was speaking about earlier. So funny memes or something like that, just enough to grab their attention and just remind them that they actually like the shirt that you put in front of them. So initially, I try to stay away from really salesy type of imagery, especially on the initial ad. I find that the engagement's much higher when it feels a bit more organic. And it comes back to that question before about who you get to come up with your ideas for your shirts. Oftentimes when you're asking questions on those ads, you get a lot of good content coming back through in those comments. And oftentimes you can find some real pearls in there that you can use for shirts. So does that answer your question?
Our focus right now is going deep into niches. So we have an X number of fan pages, and we're running all of our shirts in those pages, and we're building up and posting content in those pages. So we got really active pages now, and so we're just asking people, what kind of shirts do you want? And we also running contests, as well. And actually, as Ronnie and Sahab mentioned, we run contests. If you give us your shirt ideas, the first one that we choose to run, we'll give it to you for free. And then, man, those posts explode. It's just crazy. Hundreds of ideas come through. We got enough ideas to run shirts in that niche for a year.
Awesome. Sorry, gentleman over here.
Do you guys use a kind of software for for the ads, or for get some information out of Pinterest or new design ideas or something?
For the actual ad creation, there are a bunch of pieces of software out there that do help basically the workflow. One that we really like is Ad Factory. So for the actual ad creation, and then for research and things like that, going to Pinterest and other areas is a great place to find imagery that you want to use. Just be careful with what type of imagery you do put in your ads, because moving forward, I imagine that Facebook will be cracking down more on using intellectual property in their ads, and I think that's just somewhere that they're going to. So be careful with what images you do use. But other than that, yes, I strongly endorse software like Ad Factory.
Adfactory.co.
Yeah, adfactory.co. What's that? Sanjay uses it. Sanjay and Glenn both use it, and they say it's awesome. And if they say it's awesome, that's kind of cool.
Sanjay recommended it to me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It makes it super easy. It takes out all the guesswork, and what you can do is you can create an ad, save a template, and all you do is pop in your Teespring or Fably URL, and then you have an image that's created. It pulls the shirt automatically, and you have the exact same background. And again, it's templated, so you have the background that you know works. It already has the text that you know works, and you can download this file that you then upload into Facebook. It's the simplest ad software that I've ever seen.
It's like Springly, right? Similar to Springly?
I told you about it last year, right?
I'm using
Change your life, right?
I'm using Springly, which is basically the same thing as Ad Factor.
Without a monthly cost.
What?
Cool.
Without a monthly cost.
I don't know. I use Springly, so.
All right. Were there any questions back here before I go to Sanjay? There you go.
Thank you. My question's really for everyone, I suppose. Specifically, I guess it's for the Teespring team, but I think everyone could probably answer it. I saw on the Teespring blog, I think last year, that there was 14 people who sold more than $1 million worth of T-shirts, and then there was a similar statistic for Fably, like $100,000. I just wondered if there were kind of any commonalities that the top, the very kind of elite guys follow in terms of number of campaigns that are launched, strike rates, conversion rates. Do they focus on one niche, or anything like that, really?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that there is a common trend, and it speaks well to what Vince had said at the end of the presentation, is move fast, fail fast. And when we say fail fast, the most important thing to do is learn from your failures. It's not just keep failing and failing and failing. It's to understand what you did wrong that time. So each time you test, you're testing one variable, and you'll find out shortly after spending some money from the data that you're receiving back. So when you're spending money on a Facebook ad, you're not just throwing it away, you're buying data in your niche. So when you get that back, you can analyze everything and see, what you might have changed that one time, and then make sure you do something differently. And what those guys would do is launch high volumes of campaigns, and their success rate was also really high because of the amount of testing that they were doing. So it really is important, and I can't stress it enough that you are going to fail. It's inevitable. You can't have 100% success rate, but when you learn from those failures, that's how you increase your success rate.
And we do actually have, we're working on something that is a visual aid, a pictograph actually, that will actually give you the information that you're looking for, those exact numbers. We call them LPDs, launches per day. You want to get your LPDs up. But on average, we're looking at, we kind of have it segmented into 3 separate tiers. And as you go from the beginning tier all the way up to the advanced tier, we found that yes, there's a strong correlation in the amount of campaigns that you're launching weekly. And with that correlation is also a higher percentage of campaigns that tip, a higher success rate, and more units per campaign. Those are all good stats. You're launching more, you're selling more per campaign, and you're tipping more of the campaigns that you launch. So again, that goes back to the move fast, fail fast, succeed sooner. But yeah, I mean, and I can speak from the other side. There was a point in time when I was working with Arjun and Andrew that they would have over 300 active campaigns at any given time. And these are campaigns that would run roughly for 7 days. So you can do the math there. Incredible. So yeah, launch more.
Vince was our account manager, so I'm sorry, Vince.
Back in the early days when we were bootstrapped, we were doing everything. Scott and I, jack of all trades.
First world problems. Yeah. Cool. Sanjay?
My question was for Ronnie and Sahel. You said that you run niche campaigns in Germany, France, Spain, wherever. How do you manage the pages? Like, is it in a native language, or how do you guys do that?
It's a pretty slow customer service process, really. I sort of said it before. Like, as soon as you get a question mark on the end of a statement, no matter what language it's in, it requires work. So we basically go and get it into Google Translate straight away, and just get an idea of what they're saying, and then just send it through to the right translations team.
My question was, how do you engage? So we obviously post. We only run English ads because that's our language. But how do you engage with the audience? Like, do you post a meme and ask questions, or?
We keep it all in English. Because predominantly a lot of them do speak that way. So we just found that the conversions are a lot higher when we're putting the ad copy, obviously, translators. So.
It's a bit difficult. So, we've learnt by engaging with comments on your shirt ads and things like that, you can drive extra sales. In Germany and stuff like that, purely for speed, I guess we get like generic replies, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 generic replies, like translated. And then, after a while, we do use Google Translate. You see which ones are just, gotta have, or that sort of thing. They always put 2 or 3 words in there, and we just generate a generic reply for that. If it's a question, then we go about that and just, liking pages. So it's not as, touchy-feely as if we were speaking to someone in English and we can understand that and say, oh, cool, you like the shirt, thanks for stopping by, thanks for tagging your friend. If you want to grab one, buy a couple or whatever. So it's a bit harder to do. but I guess we just do the blanket approach. It's a bit less personal, but you know, what can you do? You know, at the end of the day, for us, Germany, Italy, France, Spain, those countries are not the bread and butter. It's the extra sales, it's the scalability that we can get out of some of our campaigns. So, you know, although we do want to maximise our return and things like that, the extra sales for the extra effort, not worth our time. So, yeah.
Suhail's also been learning German in his spare time. Cool. Any questions up front here? Yep.
Just a quick one for you, Vince. You're looking at Pinterest at the moment. You've talked about Pinterest today quite a bit. We all know that Pinterest have only just started rolling out to a few beta people, the advertising stats. However, you've had traffic from Pinterest for eons, yeah? Have you got any conversion data on that?
We're working on synthesizing that conversion data. Yeah, so we do get a lot of traffic. The short answer to your question is not that I can share today.
Okay. It's just that I'm looking at my stats in Google, the conversion from Pinterest is pretty damn low.
Yeah, and I believe that our data would support that claim. Again, I have nothing that I can actually publicly share today, but I can tell you that we work closely with Pinterest, you know, because of where our offices are and where their offices are. They're actually right around the corner, but I can tell you that we're working with them to optimize their platform as much as we're working with them to optimize our platform. But I would imagine that you're pretty good at keeping data. I trust your numbers.
The other thing with Pinterest too is as it evolves, like Vince said, it's also going to fit well with storefronts. So as you continue to build your storefront and drive traffic there, those repins are constantly being repinned. So once it goes viral, you can even stop traffic to that pin, and it can be driven back to your storefront. So that's something I'm excited about.
Is the dress blue or is it gold? That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know.
It's orange. Cool. Any other questions?
I got gold and white. I saw on the train this morning.
This question is for Chris Blair. Chris.
Yes.
When you are running ads and you're scaling up, you know, it gets to a point your PP cost increases. What do you do?
Sorry, you just said, sorry, when the cost goes up?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, obviously I'm paying attention. Obviously, as you scale up, even if you're following my 50% a day rule, you should, I mean, of course, there's exceptions, but in general, over a lot of testing, we found that the cost increase per PPE or per conversion does go up, but it's slight. It's slight, so it's gradual. Whereas if you jumped your budget quickly, it would jump quickly. Okay, so it doesn't generally hurt our ROI that much. And the reason why it doesn't hurt our ROI that much is because as you sell more shirts too, your profit per shirt goes up, your revenue per shirt goes up. So that's why it's perfect to correlate your increase, gradual increase. It's better to do it that way.
Yeah, there's a campaign that I'm throwing about $500 at the moment. You know, I discovered that my ROI has decreased. You know, I'm selling the same shirt as when I was spending about $200.
Were you jumping your ad spend fast? I mean, how much per day were you jumping?
50%.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it got to, because it's a 14-day, you know, I'm running a 14-day campaign. You know, it's for a long period of time, you know, depending on how much I start the campaign on. So you see, at the end, you know, on the 10th day, you know, there's a need for me to spend $500 on a daily basis. And I was getting the same.
Now I know what your problem is. Okay, so advertising is about like relationships with your wife or your husband. What have you done for me lately? Okay, just because an audience, a target audience, was converting for you 7 days ago does not mean it is now. People go in, they check their ad reports, and that's cool, and they look at the lifetime data. Big, big, big mistake. I look at the data for the last day or two. What have you done for me lately? And then based on that, I make my decision whether to increase my ad spend, keep it the same, lower it, or kill it. Very often, an audience that was working, because we relaunch all of our shirts that are working immediately. An audience that was working last week will not be working this week. So you're probably keeping the old audience and you're running it too long to that group.
I was just going to say, like, something that can happen in that situation too, you need to be checking your frequency. Like, if you're still targeting the same people and you're spending that much money on it, if they're not active, you're just getting in front of the same person more. So that's when you need to start looking at targeting. And in situations like that too, where you're running PPE and you start seeing, you know, like on that day, what Chris is saying, you know, you might start selling 10 shirts, but it's costing $8 or $9, so that's bringing your overall cost up. It's not worth it continuing to run. Sometimes switching the clicks to website or website conversions, if you've got enough sales on that, is a better strategy to go with. It sometimes does help. You know, the ROI to website conversions is much better than your ongoing PPE.
And then, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that Facebook serves the ad is it buckets groups of people. So if you run a clicks to website ad, it serves it up to the people that are most likely to click out of your audience the earliest. And then as it drags on, like they mentioned with frequency, then it gets served to the people that aren't as likely to click as it did at the very beginning. So it's natural to see that rise.
That's why you gotta check your reports daily. It's all about what it's done for you in the last 24 to 48 hours.
Awesome. Some great relationship advice there from Chris. Cool. Sorry.
Thanks, guys, for all the presentations and info so far. It was amazing. I'm still a little bit confused when it comes down to the very first ad setup because, you know, there's different ways to go for it. Do you do segmenting right on the first day, like, you know, start 6 ads, splitting genders, splitting age groups, or do you usually always do one general ad in the beginning and then start segmenting on day 2 according to the reports?
Okay, so what I do, I'm gonna tell you what I do, and it's not necessarily the only way. I know a guy, a friend of mine named Nishan, he does it a completely different way. He does segmentation right from day one. I don't agree with that approach because you can spend a lot of money on a shirt that's not working. So I believe in the cluster method, which I taught earlier. I cluster all 5, 6, 7 specific, well-targeted, long-tail targets into one ad, one PP ad, looking for a target that's 100,000 to 500,000, and I throw $15 at it. If it starts to work, then I increase my ad spend. By day 3, once I've got 3 days of data, then I start segmenting out. Because I think, why risk $30, $40, $50 on a shirt that you don't even know is going to sell? But anyway, but as I said, there are guys I know who actually teach, and they have a lot of success. Their students and those guys personally I know have a lot of success. They segment right from the beginning. So this is 2 different approaches. There's no one way or right answer. Each way has upsides and downside. Their way of doing it, the upside is they find out much faster where their best audiences are. But they're also risking a lot more money on every new shirt. So which do you want? This is marketing. There's no right way. There's just different ways.
What you should do though is make sure you stick with one method for long enough to actually get enough data to say, okay, that's not working for me. Because you don't want to go and do a PPE and then segment it and go, oh shit, you know, that was
Beep.
bad. But you know what I mean. Like you just need the data to back up your decision to stop running it because the actual shirt could just not resonate.
Yeah. And as we said, there are multiple different ways to go about it. Find a method that works for you. Find a method that you like. Buy into that and go from there. You know, and that's very, very important. Don't change it up too quickly before you actually let it run its natural course.
Oh, Julian, how do you guys do that? Is that the same kind of?
What we do is we come up with 3 different ways of targeting, and usually it's a broad, and then another one is a long tail keywords, and the third one is retargeting, which in the beginning you have nobody. So let's focus on the first 2, the broad and the long tail keywords. We'll run both of those, so 2 different ad sets underneath the same campaign, and you'll find out a lot of information within one day. You'll find out if both work, then continue to run them. If only the long tail one works, you run that. Actually, what we do is we look at the reports after that and figure out what are the demographics that are actually clicking through the ad. And what we'll do is we'll just edit the ad so that only those are remaining. So if we find that the only clickers are the ones who are age 35 and above, we'll turn off the ads for people who are less than 35.
Awesome. Okay. We have about 4 more minutes, I think. So we'll take one more question. Anybody? Shoot your hand up. Anybody? No? Okay, should we just go to the pub early then? Yeah? Cool. Well, guys, thank you so much, to the attendees and to the speakers. We really appreciate you guys flying up from, Japan, Australia, United States. It's been really, really awesome. So, yeah, let's get a picture. Cool.